here with a new episode of Book Talk. We are going to talk to Dr. Sona Sharma today. She is a medical professional, author, blogger, and a science enthusiast. Her latest book, Mandeep Meets Mandeep, is based on true events. We are going to talk to her about this book. She is joining us from Ludhiana. Welcome to the show, Sona.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I look forward to the conversation because after reading this book, I am very eager to meet you online and talk to you about it.
Same
I
here.
will start by congratulating you, first of all, for writing this wonderful book. And please tell us about this journey of writing this book. How did it all start?
Okay. So it's an interesting story.
Mhm.
Um, what happened was I glanced through the paper one day and, there was an article which I found very interesting. So there was an article about Mandeep who saved another Mandeep. And
Okay.
as an author, one is always looking for inspiration. And
Right.
this story, considering that it had a background in medicine, it interested me even more. So
Yes.
that's how it all started. So I was intrigued by the story, and I looked for the journalist who had written the piece,
Okay.
and she happened to be a friend of a friend. And then through her, I contacted the organization that had facilitated
Okay.
Mandeep's stem cell transplant.
Mhm.
So it's called DKMS BMST. So
Okay.
I got in touch with them
Mhm.
through the journalist, and
Mhm.
then one thing led to the other, and in no time I was meeting Mandeeps. I was meeting the people involved in this story, and I was visiting everywhere, and and this book actually almost wrote itself because everything happened on its own, and very quickly it was out within a year. So
Fantastic.
that's how it happened.
So now this must have been so interesting. But how did you approach this story?
So the fact that this is a true story, it's a true account.
Mhm.
One can't, go beyond a certain limit of reality,
Right.
right? So it's a
Yes.
true account, and one needs to be true to the story and to the characters and everything. So
Mhm.
it's not like any other fiction or anything. So the way I approached was, a little different from what I would otherwise do.
Okay.
So there was a lot of research involved,
Mhm.
both online and offline.
Okay.
I went to the places where these events were based. I went
Okay.
to Mandeep's village. I went to Mandeep's city,
Good. Okay.
Bangalore, where the other Mandeep stays.
Right.
And that was actually a very eye-opening experience for me as well, because when once I visited the
Mhm.
locations, the story took a twist and a turn, and it
Mhm.
went into a completely different dimension.
Okay.
Uh, it almost took a life of its own.
Mhm.
It so it became larger than what I had originally thought it would be. So it was not just a story of two Mandeeps now.
Mhm.
It was a
Okay.
story of all the events that were happening parallelly for a decade in both their lives. There were some
Okay.
national, international events also that got into the story, and it became much larger than what I expected. But it was definitely a very good experience for me.
I'm sure. What did you find most challenging as an author?
Okay, so the biggest challenge I think, uh,
Mhm.
uh, in terms of writing the story,
Mhm.
is that there are two Mandeeps,
Mhm. Right.
and I'm tracing both their lives in a chronological order for over a
Correct.
decade.
Yes.
So when one is speaking about two characters and two
Mhm.
lives which are very
Mhm.
distinct from each other, for
Mhm.
over a decade,
Mhm.
it's very easy to get confused,
Ah,
on how
right.
to how to handle it in such a way that the reader understands who I'm talking about. So
Right.
I did not use both their nicknames too much. I mean, I used it to a certain extent,
Mhm.
but I called them Mandeep and Mandeep throughout the book.
Right.
And that was very challenging to make sure that, there is clarity on
Mm.
what is happening.
Okay.
The other thing is like, the lack of creative liberty. I mean, you cannot go beyond a certain extent.
Correct.
So, in order to keep it interesting and everything, while a little bit of, dialogues and other stuff, some small events are made up. Especially
Mm.
there's one event where I I showed that, Mandeep passed by Mandeep uh,
Yes.
at an
Correct.
airport or something. So, they met
Mm.
each other without actually knowing who they are.
Correct.
So but you cannot take too much of creative liberty. That's the challenge. But their story itself is like a movie. It's very interesting even without trying to do anything with it.
So, what was the process of your research, Sona? I mean, be it their lives, events, places, a lot of
Yeah.
things are there.
Both online and offline, there was a
Okay.
lot of research involved because these are true events.
Right.
Especially on the events that were happening outside Mandeep's lives,
Mm.
which actually affected them.
Correct.
For example, the fact that Mandeep was able to get free medication,
Mm.
you know, because without that he would not have survived to get that
Yes.
transplant. He would have,
Right.
just met his fate like all the others in his area.
Right.
So things like that were also happening outside Mandeep's life. So there were
Mm.
many national events, international events,
Mm.
which impacted the story. So there was a lot of research that went into that,
Mm.
which was mostly online. But in terms of offline, as I told you, I visited the place, and when
Right.
I saw Mandeep's village, for example, uh,
Mm.
you know, the village looks serene, beautiful, just like how they show in the movies. You have the sarson ka khet and everything. So it's a beautiful village, and there's a canal
Okay.
that's near the village. But then there is also a very large refinery, which actually plays a very important role in this whole story.
Okay.
So it's not exact. While it looks serene and beautiful, it is actually the most polluted, location, at least in Punjab, I can say, because the groundwater, which is nobody's fault actually, the groundwater is not good. It is infused with uranium and heavy metals. So the
Okay.
groundwater is bad. There's rampant use of pesticides because it's totally a farming community and they rely
Correct.
on pesticides and fertilizers and a lot of chemicals. I mean, there's overuse of that. Plus, there is pollution from the industry, refinery, etc. So, uh, so it was completely a different picture when I actually went there and saw the situation. It opened my eyes, and that's when the story, it became larger than it originally was. Meet people there. I met Mandeep's friends. uh, you know
Oh, is it? Okay.
they play a very important role in his life
Nice.
because
They
more
helped
than
him
his
so much.
family, it was his community and his friends who supported him through his whole journey. So I met
Right.
some of his friends. I went to Bangalore. I met the team there.
Oh,
I saw the place where the stem cell donation was done. So it was a very enlightening experience for me.
okay. What message would you like to give people through this book?
So I call this book a book with a purpose because most of the times, when authors write, it's for self-actualization, or they have a very strong feeling about a subject which they think they should talk about. But with this book, I think there's a clear message that I'd like to convey, and
Right.
even the others who are all involved in the book, I think they all want to convey um, a very important message. The burden of cancer is very, very high in our country. It is said that every 5 minutes there is one case of either blood cancers or other blood disorders that are diagnosed in our country. So the burden is very, very high. and
Okay.
it's increasing at a rampant yeah, pace.
Huh.
So, for people with blood cancers and other blood disorders like thalassemia, etc.,
Hmm.
they have a fair chance of long-standing recovery
Hmm.
by the process of stem cell transplant. So
Okay.
there is a chance, that they can
Hmm.
recover, and it's not the end of their lives. So
Hmm.
through the book, I'd like to convey three messages actually.
Hmm.
One is that there is a chance for recovery, and they should not give up and find all kinds of options like how Mandeep did. It's
Hmm.
his grit and determination is something that's worth emulating. So I
Hmm.
think one is that they should not give up. The second thing is on the requirement of people to come
Hmm.
forward and sign up as stem cell donors.
Yes.
So currently, that's very, very low in our country, and uh, the awareness is also very low. So while blood donation is very, prevalent, I mean, people
Hmm.
know about it, but
Right.
this is not very,
Yes.
people
It
are
is
not
not
very
common.
aware of it.
Yes.
So creating awareness
Hmm.
of this whole method is
Hmm.
the other thing. The third thing is on, cancer itself.
Hmm.
Like in case of Mandeep, there are three big causes, like I spoke about, and some
Okay.
of it is completely in our hands to, uh, help prevent. For example,
Hmm.
the use of pesticides or the use of chemicals. These are things that can be worked on. So I think while one cannot do too much about the groundwater,
Hmm.
which turned out to be the major problem there.
Yeah.
Of course, some work was done on that, and they have now alternate sources of water. But there are many things involved, and some of it is actually preventable. So I think these are the three things that I'd like to speak
Hmm.
about through the book
Through
and
the book.
create awareness about them.
Okay. Can you tell us about the stem cell transplant?
As I told you, the burden of cancer is very high. Blood cancers and other blood disorders can be, treated with stem cell transplant. But the
Hmm.
awareness in our country is pretty low.
Okay.
And in terms of the numbers, we need lakhs of people to register.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that is not the case right now. But with increased awareness, I think that is going to improve, and a lot of people will get a second chance at life by
Okay.
opting for this procedure. It's
Okay.
expensive also,
Hmm.
but cancer treatment otherwise also is pretty expensive. So over a period of time, I think things should get better. There should be higher awareness, and people should come forward and register. So
Okay.
what's done normally is
Hmm.
that for every patient who needs a stem cell transplant, a genetic twin of sorts is to be found,
Okay.
and this is done through matching the finding an HLA match. So even within your family, not more than 30% people find a match within the family also. So
Hmm.
normally it is an unrelated person who donates the stem
Okay.
cells.
Right.
So that's like finding a needle in a haystack. So
Hmm.
the more people register, the easier it becomes to find the right match for every patient. So
Okay.
that's how it works.
That is why I think you are trying to spread the awareness through this book.
Yes, yes. So for registering, there is an international registry. It's a worldwide registry
I see.
which has details of all the people who have registered,
Okay.
and that data is used to find an HLA match for the
Hmm.
patient.
I found the registration ID of Mandeep that you have mentioned in the book very interesting. Please tell us about it.
Yeah, so what happens is that this
Mhm.
data which is collected is kept anonymous, because
Hmm.
it's your DNA that has been, the details of the DNA have been saved in the
Okay.
registry. So a lot of precaution is taken to make sure that it is anonymous.
Oh,
Uh, okay, so there are international laws, guidelines, etc., to make sure that it is not
okay.
revealed.
Hmm.
So, so since the registration ID also was to be kept anonymous, I
Hmm.
just made up a number, and the number was DK India IND,
Huh.
and then there's a number ending with not 7. So that's
Huh.
just a Bond reference. He came
Got it.
like James Bond and saved the other Mandeep. So that's how I used
Hmm.
it. So it's
Okay.
a
And
made up number, but that's because the registration ID is kept anonymous.
we have to include the discussion of imatinib and Novartis case when we are discussing this book. So please tell us more.
So yes, so that's a wonder drug. In fact,
Hmm.
when it was created, it was called a magic bullet, because
Okay.
till the time it came into the market, uh, blood cancers were like a death sentence. But it gave a fair chance for prolonging the lives of people who started taking the treatment. So it's a very important drug in that
Hmm.
way.
Okay.
And one of the things, I think two things which are very relevant to Mandeep's story is
Hmm.
that one, the treatment of cancers is very, very expensive. And at that point in 2009, 10, 11, he was spending around a lakh a month on medication. That's completely, it's a very, very difficult thing to manage for middle class or anybody for that matter. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 10, 12 lakhs a year. It's not easy. So at that point of time, I mean, a lot of people, the cases of cancers were rising in the area, and many people gave up their treatment. Instead of being socio-economic burdens on their families, they opted to give up and lose their lives. So that's where this drug became an important thing, because as an outreach program, some patients started getting it free of cost. And Mandeep had sort of started rationing his medicine, not taking it every day and so on. So uh, he fell ill. I mean, uh, his recovery, stopped. And that's when he discovered that he could get it free of cost at PGI Chandigarh. And that's when the story took a turn, and he started getting his free medication, and he did not stop. He was very disciplined with his treatment, and that's how he survived long enough to get that transplant. The second thing of note is that uh, worldwide, people were protesting against a patent on this drug.
Okay.
uh, and a very large campaign called Patent Skill Patients
Okay.
was launched. And
Okay.
MSF and organizations like these, plus all the doctors, WHO, etc. A lot of organizations were involved, and they fought against this patent. And there's a landmark judgment, 2013, of
Okay.
the Indian Supreme Court, which
Hmm.
actually turned the tides, and Novartis lost that case, and the drug became affordable. And it's important to note that it's not just in India that this caused an impact,
Okay.
because this is such a large judgment that
Hmm.
many such cases can be taken forward, and drugs can be made more affordable.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's a very, very large landmark case.
What, according to you, is the role of NGOs or organizations working for these people?
So I think the biggest burden, or the biggest challenge, one is on the awareness, of I mean, not just cancer, but it would hold true for many diseases.
Yeah.
One is the awareness part.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to go for screening, your lifestyle, and things like that. So there's a lot of awareness from the preventive aspect as well from the treatment aspect.
Okay.
So NGOs and organizations can play a very, very important role in that sense. The second thing is on the monetary front, because uh, any kind of cancer or many diseases that way are a big socioeconomic burden. Uh, Insurance can cover only a certain extent, and there is a big monetary aspect where organizations can play a very, very important role. uh, so one is the preventive and treatment aspect in terms of awareness, and the other is the monetary support. And the third thing I would say is the need for support groups. So, sometimes when one is diagnosed, uh, they do not understand how to go about it. And, a support group gives you a lot of help in terms of how to approach, where to get treatment, and so on and so forth. Even for the families of patients, they also need a lot of support. As a caregiver, for nobody thinks about caregivers in the family. I mean, they also need some kind of a support group. So, in fact, Mandeep Singh from Bangalore, who's the donor, he had started work on a family support group of
Is
patients.
it? Okay.
Yeah, but handling
Interesting.
it single-handedly is tough. I mean, one needs a
Yes.
lot of resources.
Right.
So I think organizations can play a very important role
Mhm.
on that front. And
Okay.
fourthly, it's about research and
Mhm.
development. Of
Mhm.
course, that work happens through various agencies. So these are the four things I think.
Okay. Can you tell us about the book launch at the hands of Tiska Chopra?
Oh, that was an experience in itself. I mean, it was a very, very well attended event in Delhi, and Tiska Chopra launched the book, and she spoke about, you know, uh, the cause. And that itself, I think, was important because, in terms of creating awareness, that's a very good thing. And press was also invited, and they wrote about it. And I'd just like to share, like,
Mhm.
after Mandeep's book was released,
Okay.
Mandeep, the patient,
Mhm.
disclosed at that event that 3 4 people had contacted him after
Reading the book.
reading about it, and
Okay.
they started taking their treatment seriously, and they also sort of started thinking about getting the
Mhm.
stem cell transplant. So any life saved through this serves
Right.
the whole purpose of the book.
So now you are taking a lot of measures to spread the awareness through book launches or bookmarks.
Yeah.
So tell us about all the activities that you are doing about for this.
Yeah, so in my own small way, I mean, I'm trying to create awareness. Uh,
Okay.
if you see the book, uh, there's a QR code at the
Okay.
back,
Mhm.
and that's a one step process for learning about signing up as a donor.
Okay. Mhm.
And it takes you to a form, and all the details about how you can become a donor. So
Okay.
it serves the cause of increasing the number of people who sign up. uh,
Yes.
yeah, so
Certainly.
that's the thing. Similarly, bookmarks have been
Mhm.
distributed
Okay.
to various people. There was a blood donation camp in
Mhm.
Punjab University, and
Okay.
there we handed out or distributed the bookmarks to people who donated
Okay.
blood.
Mhm.
So these are the people who are more sensitive towards
Yes.
such causes, and some of them could on a later date
Mhm.
sign up as stem cell donors. So
Right.
plus there is some social media
Mhm.
activation, etc. I've been doing.
Okay.
100 copies have gone
Mhm.
to people who have registered as stem cell donors.
Oh,
And
this is.
that I think
Mhm.
is important because it is said that 50 to 70% of the people who sign up as donors
Hmm.
finally do not go ahead and donate. While they
Hmm.
register, many people back off. There are multiple reasons for that,
Yeah.
but a lot of people back off at the time, when
Hmm.
the donation has to happen or when they
Hmm.
are found as a match.
Hmm.
So maybe the book, once they read the book, they'll understand how Mandeep went about it, and maybe it'll inspire them to, go ahead also.
Definitely, because you've described it very nicely in the book
Yeah.
about the
So,
thought process of everyone, like the
yeah.
donor, the recipient, and even the manager who is handling all these processes.
Yeah,
That's
both case managers. I mean, hats off to them. They work very hard to educate the donor, the recipient, and that's a tough job. I mean, to convince people, to go forward. And I think both the case managers have done a commendable
their
job.
role became very important in convincing both the people,
Yeah.
donor and recipient.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
just the last question before we go: are the donor and recipient allowed to meet each other, or are they allowed to disclose identities?
There are laws in different countries.
Mm-hmm.
In our country, 2 years after recovery, they are allowed to meet.
Achha.
Before that, they are kept anonymous. So even in
Okay.
case of Mandeep, only after Mandeep was uh, pronounced recovered, 2 years after that they were allowed to meet. And that's their meeting itself was a very emotional moment as far as I can see from the
Mm-hmm.
videos. And
Yes.
I've been told by the teams that the teams that handle such a process,
Mm-hmm.
that people try to find they are allowed to write letters anonymously
Achha.
or
Okay.
send gifts. So many times, they write a letter and then they write their name, and these people have to read through everything and make sure the identity is kept anonymous till the time
Wow.
that it's allowed by law. So, I mean, there is a lot of emotion attached
Mhm.
to
Yes.
the attached between the patient and the donor.
Mhm.
They definitely want to meet each other and see how their genetic twin is, and thank them in person.
Correct.
But there are laws governing these, and that's how it happens.
Okay. Okay. This was a great discussion. And thank you so much, Sona, for educating us about the stem cell transplant and, of course, about the cancer part through this book.
So it's a very heartwarming story, and I'm glad I wrote it. It's been a really great experience for me as well, and I must thank you for taking the initiative and speaking about this book. I'd like more Mandeeps to come forward and take treatment when they are ill, and
Mhm.
not give up, and many more Mandeeps to come forward and sign up as stem cell donors.
So I wish you all the best for all your initiatives. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.